Today, we're working on dark matter. We're not building it today, but we're gonna be planning out the loop. So let's just do this. Hello and welcome. Today, we're actually going to be planning out the absolutely insane loop that is going into the dark matter test PC. And today, we're actually going to show you how we do it, how we come up with these crazy things and how everything kind of just comes together. And our first step is actually going to be to test fit our rad, our pump. We got some fans to see how it's all gonna fit, and then the pump bracket. We're gonna be test fitting these pieces in here right now. That way I can get a very good idea of what we're dealing with. And then I'm gonna take it over to the computer and I'm going to show you how I basically create a 2D sketch of what's going to happen and then model it in 3D. That way I can figure out exactly how many fittings I'm going to need, because I have a tendency to over order ever so slightly, but unfortunately we're not big enough that I'm getting fittings sent to me. I literally have to order these things, so you know, every cent counts. So I guess let's just start by test fitting this stuff and yeah, go from there. Okay, so after some difficulty with Thermaltake being Thermaltake, yeah, you know, I actually, my first impressions of this case were great. And then that happened where, although it states that it does up to a 420, it really does not. I mean, I've got it in here. It's inside the case now, and it looks great, but I had to take away the rail system, which is used for the tempered glass. So the glass is not going to be on the case anymore. That being said, that was the main stability issue at this case anyway, and since I am going to be using this as a test system, the glass would have been a hindrance anyway, but it's still a little disappointing because I will have pretty much exposed fans just kind of running with absolutely no protection from my fist. So yeah, but other than that, let's actually talk about planning out a loop in a case like this. So, well, for a situation like this. So the next step here is actually going to be to take some pictures of the case front facing. And we want to do this because what we're going to do is we're actually going to essentially sketch up how we want this to work, because we've got our inlet and outlet up here. We've got an inlet and outlet down here. We've got an inlet on the top of the reservoir. I don't know which ones we're going to actually use because we're gonna have to do some funky angles anyway, because essentially this loop is going to be different. We need to make it so that this loop can have things added or removed from it without there being as much work to it. Now, originally I was thinking I'll do something with quick disconnects and all that, and then I decided against it because a lot of the companies that make quick disconnects actually have some pretty bad track records with corrosion and things of that nature. And so I want to stick with as many EK parts as possible because I know for a fact if I'm using the EK parts, EK will essentially guarantee the parts that I have that are theirs. So another downside to this case, again related to the fact that I'm using a 420, and I mean it looks great, the 420 in here, but another downside because I'm using a 420 is that their mounting holes that are behind the IO are not accessible. Like, they are just not accessible. I can't get an Allen key back there easily to put some screws in. That being said, it's being held down by most of the screws anyway, but like there's just so many things. Like, this could have been perfect. It could have been great, but it needed to be like a half an inch longer this way. Just half an inch. And it could have been absolutely perfect in that regard. And then of course having feet on the glass would have helped. But let me go ahead, take my pictures, and then I'll show you how we're gonna plan this loop out, because essentially we know we need to go from here to here. We need to go from here to our components and then back to here. A simple diagram of how the tubing runs might work. So we're gonna go out from the pump reservoir combo straight up to the actual top of the radiator. And in between that, we're gonna run some junctions, some T-block junctions that EK makes. And then some of their ball fitting valves in between those. That way, if we have something connected into the loop, like a GPU block, we can actually close the valve and have it direct its flow directly out the side of said valve. Now, we need to make sure that these valves are set to the open position when they are not in use, because that will build pressure in the system and it will just completely break the loop. And that being said, I'm thinking what we're gonna do is we're gonna have some hard tubing along the actual side of the radiator. That way we're not dealing with flexible tubing, but coming out of those T-fittings, we'll actually use the soft tubing. That way, of course, getting a CPU or GPU in and out will be a little bit easier. And also will be a fairly easy system to drain because everything is going to be laterally connected. So we can literally just open up a valve and drain it. So, as I said, we're gonna 3D model this. It's gonna look a lot better after we're done 3D modeling it, because right now it just looks like nothing. But the idea is there, the concept is there. And yeah, okay. So I've got some of the concepts down, but I'm having some difficulty seeing a little bit of this. The big thing is going to be this junction piece right here. This piece is going to be kind of heavy, and I may have to just build one to see if we're going to be able to create something that can support the weight, because that's going to be a lot of weight on there. And if not, we may have to go back to the drawing board on this one. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and hope that works. This is definitely one of the oddest things I've ever done for a liquid cooling loop. Sometimes you plan something out that's a little too ambitious. And I think this one might be a little too ambitious. Looking at this total, I don't think we're gonna go that way, especially when, although it won't look as pretty, a soft line tubing loop would be more or less exactly the same and just as effective. So that's the way that I think we're going to end up going, because it will just end up working much better in this case. I mean, there are problems with this case. We're gonna flip the whole thing over. We're gonna reconfigure it in a way that the tubes will literally just go out and then plug directly in. And I think I'm just gonna get a nice pack of softline tube fittings, some softline tubing, and call it a day. I mean, there are a couple other things that I want to get. Like, I want to get a temperature sensor of some sort in there. But yeah, I mean, literally just going out from this and into whatever we need here. That sounds better than trying to create this concoction. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. I've got a lot of fittings to order, and this is not gonna be cheap, and we're probably not gonna see the fruits of our labor today for a little while. And honestly, I'm excited to actually see how this pans out. I mean, this build has already changed ever so slightly because of Thermaltake's design choices. And so now we're doing like a fully open air setup, and it's definitely going to be interesting, and I'm really excited to see where everything goes from here. I'm excited for how this is going to turn out, and I honestly can't wait. It's been a hot minute since I've actually started a brand new project with brand new design intentions. So thank you guys again. I'm just gonna put this back on the shelf and wait for more parts to come. Wolfie out.